think over the past few episodes, I've made it clear that I'm actively in the process of co-creating and manifesting my dream life and career. And honestly, I'm living it. I truly am. Like, I've arrived. I'm at the entrance to the adventure park, but I'm here and I'm building it brick by brick, small step by small step, and instruction by instruction. I'm taking baby steps so small that it feels like my 1-year-old can run laps around me. But that's all right. That's okay. Because I'm proving to myself that it's safe to be this version of me. It's safe to enter into this reality that I've been calling in. I'm proving to myself that my bigness, my expansion is safe. And that's hard work. And it's scary work. Because not too long ago, I realized that I've low-key been waiting for something to come up and F it all up. Instead of looking straight ahead, I'm constantly peeping around the corner for life's big scary monster to come knock me off my game and take it all away. And if not some random life mishap, I was just waiting on the version of myself that doesn't trust me to come and mess things up. The version of me that's like, sis, who do you think you are? You can't have that. You can't be that. Ain't that some ish? Believe it or not, we can sometimes be so afraid of receiving the blessings that we're asking God for that we subconsciously or unintentionally push them away. We doubt our worthiness. We question the validity of our experiences. By believing that some things are too good to be true, we take on imposter syndrome and tell ourselves no before somebody else can. We wait for the other shoe to drop because life experiences tell us that it eventually will. At some point in our lives, each and every one of us have come across a CB. Mamas, they're likely your kids. I know because mine are big time CBs. But have you ever met a BB, a blessing blocker? Take a look in the mirror. Because if you aren't actively taking steps to prepare for and receive your blessings, you might be your own blessing blocker. In this episode, my friend Jacqueline V. Twillie and I discuss how not to be BBs and how to graciously come into the final stages of co-creation, receiving and stewarding our blessings. Welcome to Even in the Small Things, a place for believers and non-believers alike to meet, see, feel, and understand God. This podcast is here to help us realize how God is a part of everything, especially the small things. I'm your host, Jewel. Join me in conversation to learn how I, along with some of my friends, mix the word with the woo to help us navigate parenthood, entrepreneurship, and Black womanhood. Whether you're pursuing creative passions or conscious parenthood, you will gain practical tools to help you discover the divine in everyday life. May this be a blessing unto you. Today's sacred text is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, Kings chapter 3, verse 16 to 19. And he said, Elisha, this is what the Lord says. Make this valley full of ditches. For the Lord says, you will see neither wind nor rain, yet this valley will be filled with water. And you, your cattle, and your other animals will drink. This is an easy thing in the eyes of the Lord. Hey girl, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me on Even in the Small Things. I know who you are because you're my friend, my sis, but I need to let the good people know who you are.
Yes.
Today, joining us on Even in the Small Things, we have an amazing woman, a phenomenal woman, someone I'm so thrilled to call my friend, Jacqueline V. Twillie. Jacqueline is a leadership strategist, a negotiation expert, a 3 times best-selling author, and of course, CEO and founder of Zero Gap and its Resilient Leaders program. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the same Jacqueline V. Twillie that's been seen in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. Welcome, friend.
Thank you, Jewel. I'm so excited to be here and very excited for our combo today.
Yes, from this podcast was just an idea. I knew that I wanted to have this conversation with you. I was like, you're my expert master receiver. I'm always getting tips and tricks from you on how to vibe high. So you are by far the most perfect person for this combo.
I'm very honored to hear that. And even preparing for today for our conversation, just reflecting on my own journey, I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I do. This is just natural.
Yes, it is. So we're going to get
Yeah.
into all of that and just how natural it is for you because it's not for all of us, trust me. Let's jump into this first question that I have for you.
Okay.
I used it to kick off this series with another guest, and I think it's such a profound question that I want to pose it to you too. Do you believe in co-creation? And what does co-creating with the divine mean to you as a Black woman?
Yes. And having worked in a global space for many years, co-creating as a Black woman has taken on a different meaning for me. Prior to my experience working internationally, I saw limitation and I saw push through and struggle as a part of the narrative around Black women. To co-creating was a necessity. And over the years, I've learned that it is also a privilege and a luxury. So when I'm co-creating, it's less of what do I need, which is how I started co-creating, to now being in a place of if money wasn't an object and I could do anything, what would that experience be? So co-creating now is from a more expansive place and not out of a place of lack or limitation. It's truly coming from abundance. Now I'm creating from a place of if I am here having this human experience, how can I leave this place better than how I found it?
Okay. Okay. So now you're almost having traveled the world and seen so much, creating from a place of how do I add to this? How do I make this better, not just for me, but for the greater good?
Absolutely.
One of the things I really want us to start with, like if we're looking at the process, and again, I want to know how you went from creating from a place of lack and limitation and necessity to creating abundantly. At either end of that spectrum, let's call it, there comes a point where I'm sure you have to literally make space for that, right? And the more that
Yeah.
you're calling in, the bigger the space that you have to create. I know when I don't necessarily think I'm yet at the place where I'm creating from abundance all the time because there is some necessity
Hmm.
plastered into some areas of my life. But I know for one, when I'm co creating with God and the divine, I get excited about the vision or the desire or the thing that I'm praying for and trying to manifest. And sometimes we just let it hang there, like in the state of the desire. So we might I know I visualize, like I love to visualize before I go to sleep. I'm going to say my affirmations and I know that it's going to come. But sometimes I feel like when you're really trying to receive that thing, we have to first put ourselves in position to receive, right? So whether it
Absolutely.
is like a place to live or whether it's a novel idea or a book that you want to write that's going to edify the world and help Black women or anybody for that matter, we really have to make sure that we're preparing to receive that thing, right? And not
Hmm.
just like making room for it or preparing for it after the blessing shows up or after that desire actually
Yeah.
manifests, but like the type of preparation that shows I'm demonstrating faith in myself and I'm demonstrating faith in divine because I know that this is going to come to pass. As my expert receiver, when you're co creating something or calling it in, how do you know when to start preparing? And does it always feel like, okay, this makes sense? Like, does it always feel practical and logical? Or does it ever feel premature, again, in a logical sense?
Mm. Okay, so a couple of things to unpack there. So I'll go back to the first part of the question. How do you know when it's time?
Mm-hmm.
The moment that you receive the download and you have the awareness, that's your awareness that the preparation is beginning. You could have already begun the preparation process and not been fully aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the tangible steps to get ready to receive, once you have that aha moment, that awareness, it becomes a couple of things. For example, you want a new wardrobe, get rid of your old stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying don't have any clothes to wear, but you probably have that favorite bra that the wire coming
Girl,
out
right. I
because
was
that's
about to
the
say the
favorite bra.
underwire.
The underwire is busting out, right? So step number one is, if you're preparing to receive more clothing, then you want to start looking at things that have served you well, that are worn, and don't cling to it. Just let it go. Express the gratitude and get rid of it. The other aspect of that is, clearing out your physical space. So a lot of us hang on to things. Maybe it fit us at a different size, or maybe that paper we picked up looked interesting at that event, but we never
Right.
did anything with it, and we put it in a junk drawer. Like, all of those things have to be cleared out. That's stuck energy. And so those are some of the things to do practically in order to receive. Now, at other points, there's even more preparation that you need to do. In the intro, you mentioned my work with helping people in leadership, their careers, and negotiation. Sometimes it's also preparation is brushing up on your skills. It's not always
Mm-hmm.
shedding. It's investing in that class, going to the course. And you talked about this in your intro episode of the podcast, how you even prepared to go to the event by booking the
Mm-hmm.
ticket and making sure the physical, tangible things were doing. But that was also preparation for this podcast, because you went to that space.
You're
You
right.
went to that event.
Going back to the first episode, if I were like, I'm trying to go to this training. I don't know if I'm in yet, but I'm gonna book the ticket, get my hair cut, and pack my bags, and I'm gonna find a
Yeah.
place to go. Like, I think that really signals readiness, you know?
Yeah.
And I love what you said about sometime, like by the time you get the aha, by the time you get the idea, you're kind of already in position, because you first have to be in position to receive the idea, the desire, the concept of the thing that you're trying to co-create. I really want to hone in on what you're saying here. I'm very curious if there's a specific example in your life that you can think to recently when, I don't know, whether in your work life or your personal life, where you're like, there's this desire that I have, and I'm trusting in the fact that it's going to happen. I have my lived experiences that I'm good at co-creating. I'm good at creating things. I'm good at building the life that I want. Before the ink dries on this, I'm going to start getting my ducks in a row. So whether that includes your shedding process, whether that includes your investing process, tell us about a specific thing that you can think of where you really had to put yourself in position to receive and start to prepare with purpose.
This is a good one. This is before I was consciously aware that I was co-creating, but I think it's a good example,
Mm-hmm.
because we are creating whether we are conscious of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 2012, 2013, I had the insight that I was going to write a book, which was my first best-selling book, Navigating the Career Jungle. When I think back on that process, I set out on a piece of paper that it was going to be a best-selling book. And the writing process came very natural.
Mm-hmm.
I made adjustments in terms of my work schedule. I started my workday earlier at 7 a.m. I ended my workday at 3 p.m. And then I went to a coffee shop to write. I cut off pretty much all of my social interaction during that time. Now, I was living in Atlanta, so it was like
The
living my
place
best
to
life,
be, right?
high girl summer all the time. So listen, my social life was popping, but I knew that I had this desire to write the book. So I adjusted my social life and my work life in order to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Was I even wrote when I was on vacation in Japan. I remember sitting at the base of Mount Fuji. I remember one day sitting in the coffee shop in Tucker, Georgia, which is like right on the tip of
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, and my laptop crashed, and I cried like nobody's business, because back then there was no
Wasn't no
cloud.
cloud.
Wasn't no cloud. So I kept emailing it to myself afterwards. I had to pay a lot of money to have my computer recovered. And I remembered like how hurt I felt that all of this that I had poured into these pages would just be gone away
Gone.
like that. And I didn't know if I could recapture the essence of what I was creating. So fast forward, the book comes out. I'm telling my hairdresser about it. I'm telling my friends about it, but I'm not telling my work because I worked in an institution that said you need to get clearance before you do anything on your own, even though this book was not related to my work whatsoever. And then I go into work one day. I was very conscious while writing the book that if my employer found out, that they would never say, oh, that's why she was slacking, because she was over here writing this book. So I was doing, even though I adjusted my schedule 7 to 3, I was hitting every I on every dot on the I's and crossing every T on the T's, right? I was on my game. And so I, in this process of writing the book, was recognized as the global employee of the month. They called it GEM.
Yes, ma'am.
And I get into work one day right after the book was published, and there's an email from the division director. And it says, congrats, Jacqueline Twillie. And me being in my ego and I'm that girl moment was like, oh yeah, I'm Gem again. I'm
I'm
the
gem of
global
the month,
employee.
baby.
I'm global employee of the month again.
Right.
Lo and behold, she's congratulating me on my book. And I wanted to fall underneath my desk and just kind of melt into the floor because I'm like, oh my goodness, one, how did they find out? I thought
Right.
nobody would find out. And then also, what are they going to say? So, long story short, my hairdresser told one of his other clients about my book, who was my boss's boss. She
Oh,
told her boss, the division director.
goodness.
That's how the email got sent. That created a ripple. She didn't put the link to buy my book because that would have been against the regulations that were set forth. But because I worked in a global unit, all of my colleagues around the world were buying my book
Look at that.
consistently. My book stayed on the bestseller list for about 4 to 5 months. The reason why I gave you that example, because I did co-create that, but I was not conscious of the process. But when I look back in hindsight, I can see from the moment I decided I was writing that book, all of the things I did in the process, adjusting my work schedule, adjusting my social calendar, the commitment to write even on vacation, the ability to push through even when my computer crashed and pay the extra money to have the computer recovered. All of those were preparation steps and shedding steps to get me there to receive.
I'm hearing you say two things, right? Firstly, yes, you co created this book. You birthed a book into the world. But separately from that, what you were truly co creating was both the experience of creating the book and ultimately creating a best-selling book. And the way that
Absolutely.
you created the best-selling, I want to focus on that part. The way you created the best-selling book was all the steps that you just named and making sure that you structured your work schedule and your work itself in a way that maybe when this pop, I'm not trying to hear nothing about it, right?
Right.
They cannot say that I was slacking on my pimping at work to go ahead and try to do this thing. So you were, again, not just making space for the book, you were making space for what came with the book, the sales, being on the best-selling list for 45 months. Like, that's the bigger thing I want us to focus on here.
Yeah.
I hear that. Was there ever a moment that you doubted that your preparation was worth it?
I think it's natural when you don't see evidence of something immediately to
Yeah.
question. I anchored into a quote a long time ago that's really been steady for me, is that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So whenever
Mm.
I do feel like doubt creeps up, I don't really get, I don't allow myself to go down the place of, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I am exactly where I am supposed to be, wherever
Mm-hmm.
that is in the
Yeah.
process. Does that does not mean that I don't have moments where I'm sad, where I don't know how this is gonna happen. That doesn't negate that. I
Yeah.
just don't allow myself to sit there too long.
That's something else I know you're really good at. That's the perfect segue into the next point that I wanted to bring up for us. Once you put yourself in position to receive, you make all the preparations to start receiving this thing. And again, what we're receiving is always bigger than just the thing, right? Clarifying
Right.
again, so the book, but you're receiving a best-selling book. That's the enormity of what we're co-creating here.
Mm-hmm.
So after you start to prepare and put things and put yourself in position to receive, the next thing that we need to do is align ourselves vibrationally and emotionally with the frequency of our desire. So you talked about, of course, being human, naturally experiencing feelings like doubt or sadness, but not allowing yourself to stay there. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes we allow ourselves to get stuck there, and sometimes we allow ourselves to get stuck at the preceding step by preparing, but not really meeting that thing emotionally, right? We prepare
Mm-hmm.
for it, but we're still experiencing doubt. We're still experiencing disappointment or fear or lack. But I know one of the things that I've learned in my receiving process, and one of the things I see for sure in your process, is that you can't attract what you don't feel safe to hold, and you certainly can't attract what you don't feel like you're worthy of having. So if you
Right.
didn't feel like you were, before I even put a pen to the paper or a stroke to the keyboard, I already know that this is a bestseller because I'm worthy of writing a best-selling book and being a best-selling author.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we have to show the divine, we have to show God, and we have to show ourselves that we are really ready to receive the thing that we're co creating by embodying that energy and by being capable of being the person that acts like that. You already started acting like you had a best selling book, right?
Yes,
Go ahead.
and though,
Yeah.
because again, this is before I reached a level of consciousness that I was co-creating.
Mm
I think what I did there, hindsight being 2020, is the ability to let go. I
hmm.
had the desire, and I didn't attach to how is this going to happen.
Mm
I'd
hmm.
done a ton of research of how to get to best selling.
Mm
I
hmm.
tried to understand algorithms and sales metrics, et cetera, et cetera. And so yes, I was doing all of the preparation, but then I let it go. I
Mm
just
hmm.
wrote the book. When
Mm
the
hmm.
book released, I wasn't holding on to this needs to be a bestseller. I had let that go.
Mm
And
hmm.
then when it happened, I was like, of course it happened because that was my intention. So there's a nuance there
I agree.
of preparing to receive, but also not being so wired,
Attached. Yeah.
not being so wired up about this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. You make the desire, you set your intention, you state it clearly, you write it down, whatever your process is, and then you go about the work and you let that other part go. It's going to
Mm
do what
hmm.
it needs to do.
I want to learn more about how you, and it doesn't have to be the same example of the book, but when
Mm-hmm.
you are calling in a desire or trying to make something real, how do you get into that feeling capacity? And how do you start to act as that thing that you're calling in is already here and start
Yeah.
to act like the person that has that thing?
Okay, y'all, this took me years. So there's a couple of things. In 2016, I met Susie Baptiste.
Mm-hmm.
And Susie's been very pivotal in my journey and helping me to expand. When people get introduced to Susie Baptiste and her Alive program, you start to see that she speaks a lot about resonance and dissonance, and that's just our energy, what is calling us and what's not. I grew up in a culture that taught me to suppress my dissonant feelings, to
Mm-hmm.
not articulate them, to not ruffle any feathers, to just be grateful for what I had, to keep my head down and work really, really hard, even if I felt dissonance. And energetically, when you learn to ignore dissonant situations, you are not able to see that something's coming greater for you. For instance, I got upgraded on an international flight to business class.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, somebody asked me to switch my flight. You know, you're flying all the time. They're like, oh, do you mind switching your flight to XYZ? I have flexibility in my schedule. Yeah, I'll take the flight credit for $650 and go on a later flight. Okay, whatever. Lose my seat, whatever. But then my connecting flight, the next part of that leg of the trip, oh, we actually had to upgrade you to business class. So energetically receiving, it wasn't resonant for me to get on that plane. Previously, I would have said, why is this happening? No, I have a schedule. I was being rigid. I need to get there at this time. What was I going to do? Just chill and wait until I could check into the hotel, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
just drop my bag at the hotel and roam around for a little bit. The ability to see small things and say, oh, I can do this. This is resonant or this is dissonant. So I'm not going to do this and I'm going to express it. That ability to tap into that muscle and understand, that is our energy. So then the awareness goes even deeper to a place of there's some work by Dr.
Mm-hmm.
David Hawkins, and it's the map of consciousness.
Yeah.
There's a measurement for energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, when you look at resonance and dissonance, you look at the emotions attached to resonance and dissonance: joy, comfort, peace,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, stress, anxiousness, etc. There's measurements that show where your energy associated with the feeling, that energy vibrates higher. And this is measured. And then when you have those opposite end feelings, they're negative energetically. The vibration is just literally negative.
Lower, yeah.
No, not lower, negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I see what you mean on this
when you
actual scale.
feel exactly on the actual scale, when you feel completely drained, can't get out of bed, don't know what's going on, can't eat, those type, what in the world is going on, that is measured as negative energy. And
Mm-hmm.
so you cannot co-create. You can, but it's not going to be like the highest things. You're not going to get there. You got to get your energy back up the scale.
Mm-hmm.
So learning how to read the scale, I'm going to pull this up so I can just say the name.
Yeah.
That part of resonance and dissonance, clearing out space and being aligned energetically, those are the things that help me to align to the life where I'm flying all over the world, I'm staying in the best hotels, I check into a hotel, of course I get upgraded to the best suite,
Mm-hmm.
I'm flying, of course I'm getting upgraded to business first class consistently. And this is like, and then I'm living the life beyond my wildest dreams. The things that I wanted to do in terms of how I impact the world, the impact is even deeper and greater. The ripple effect is beyond what I can see, because all of these moving little puzzle pieces, I'm working on myself. I'm increasing my awareness. How do I think? How do I feel? And that's the real piece of receiving, is not just, oh, I want this, I'm going to have it. It is, who am I and what is the energy that I'm currently vibrating at, and how do I elevate this?
I really want to hone in on a few things that you said. Being that person and embodying that frequency, right? That's where this idea of acting as if really comes into play. Because let's
Yeah.
say that, let's use a hotel and the traveling example, right? Let's say that I want to be a frequent traveler, but I want to stay at only 5-star hotels. I want to fly in first class only. I need to feel that first, right? So, in
Mhm.
your process of living your wildest dream or co creating anything at any level, what are some of the emotions, right? Again, going back to this scale that we're going to talk about
Mhm.
in more detail in just a bit, going back to the scale and the vibrational frequencies of these scales or the vibrational frequencies of these emotions, what emotions do you feel like you consciously cultivate when you're calling something in? And how do you make sure that you stay anchored in those states?
The feelings that I gravitate towards are peace.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at significant moments in my life, peace has been an underlying factor. Um, because you have things that spike you, right?
Mm-hmm.
High highs and low lows, and I've had both. But when I'm at a place where I am at peace,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I know, oh,
Good is
this
coming.
is this
Yeah.
is this is it. But it's also milking the joyful moments of life for everything. So I once heard Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, say there was this time where someone came over and they were playing music, doing some work in her house, moving the speaker around or
Oh
something.
yes, and the guys came in.
Yes, the guys came in with the
Yeah.
music, right? And she anchored into that feeling. And she's like, how long can I ride this emotion? How long
Mhm.
can I milk this good feeling? That really resonated with me. So anytime I had a moment, whether I was at walking down the street and somebody was like, oh, okay, sis, I like that outfit. Then I was like, oh, that made me feel good. Then I
Mhm.
really hang on to that feeling. Or a client messaging me and saying, Jacqueline, you won't believe this. I got a 43% increase after I negotiated a deal. Uh, I would feel proud and happy and feel like I'm having impact. And I would anchor into that feeling of, you just gave me a compliment that feels good. Or I go to a coffee shop and I'm like, hey, I just want to buy a gift card for 50 bucks and
Mhm.
whoever comes next, use it until it goes. Then that also makes me feel good because I'm a
Mhm.
giver also.
Mhm.
So whatever those feelings are, that help elevate my mood and my vibe, I anchor into this. And I was trying to be conscious of this at one point and really hone into how long can I hang on to a good feeling from one single event. And I think once I consciously remember hanging on to something for about 3 months and then
Mm.
something else for about 6 months. And one was like a hug from my niece, and the other one was a text from one of my childhood friends. So the actual vibration was lifted because I kept living in the good feeling. I didn't stop living life, but I just kept, every time I had a quick little moment where I was waiting on something, waiting in line or in the elevator, or walking upstairs or walking down
Thinking
the
about
street.
that time. You mentioned you consciously cultivate a feeling of peace because you
Uh-huh.
feel like that's when the energy around you just feels right for creating. You already know what to be able to reach a feeling of peace, you're not existing in a state of lack or limitation because you're okay with what is.
Yes, that's the
Yeah,
let go.
right. That's
So
the
I
let go.
just looked on this. I had to pull this map up, but peace energetically logs at 600.
Mm,
The only thing above that is enlightenment. I didn't even realize that until now. But the feeling of peace is being okay with what is. And
mm-hmm,
that's going back to what I said earlier. That quote that I anchor into is, I'm exactly where I need to be.
mm-hmm,
Wherever I am exactly where I need to be.
mm-hmm.
And really just truly believing that can for me has removed so much of my anxiety and stress and trying to figure out and force something to happen, that I do believe it's opened up a place for me. Let me give you an example. There was a time where I used to get jealous when I would see other people doing things online.
Mm.
And I used to be like, I want to do that. Why can't I do that? That was my true, honest
Reaction.
reaction and intention and desire, is why I can't do that.
Right.
Once I started anchoring into, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, I didn't even realize it. I started celebrating other people. It wasn't I'm just going to start celebrating them. I just knew, oh, that's where they're at. That's an indicator that they're on their path, which means
Mm-hmm.
I can also be on my path. I'm exactly where I need to be. I started celebrating people so hard. I remember one time I called my mom and she was, who is this? Do
Mm-hmm.
I know them? Did you ever talk about them before? And I was, oh, I'm at such peace with where
Yeah.
I am that I'm celebrating other people to the point where I'm calling my mama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it sounds like we have feelings of peace,
Mm-hmm.
acceptance, surrender, and just good, I want to say joy, but it's kind of more than that. It's this positivity and joy for other people, completely removing any feelings of jealousy, lack, or limitation for yourself.
Yeah.
When you're trying to be joyous, you're trying to be peaceful, but external circumstances are requiring other feelings
Mm-hmm.
from you, right? How do you stay in those feelings apart from milking it? Is there anything else that you do when you fall out of these emotions, when you fall into the lower frequencies? How do you get yourself back into those
Yeah.
feelings of joy and acceptance and happiness for others?
So these are some of the tips that I learned from Layla Delia from being
Mm-hmm.
in the Vibrate Higher Daily School for a few years, because Layla is all about high vibrational living.
Mm-hmm.
So green juice, number one.
You love your green juices.
Listen, green juice all day, every day. You can get it in powder format, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The green juice is essential because it nourishes the body. Water, like anyone who knows me well knows that I always have a hydration packet around, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to get a hydration infusion,
Mm-hmm.
the health IV drips. And then one of the things I learned from Susie is that when you are going through those moments that are intense, you got to ground. So
Mm-hmm.
either go out in nature, put your feet in the grass, get in warm water with Epsom salt and sit for like 30 minutes. I've even done sensory deprivation, floating in 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt, even with my braids. Now that's a different struggle. Getting that salt out your hair at the end of that, or like opening
Mm-hmm.
your eyes too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And cleaning the space and making sure your home is a sanctuary. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling grief, sadness, frustration, anger, etc., I go to those things. What we put in our bodies, it it is directly tied to our vibration. So if I'm gonna eat a cheeseburger, I'm most likely drinking a green juice also.
Balance.
It just is
Yeah.
what it is, because I can't let that vibration dip too low. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand if I'm eating junk food, then I'm gonna have junk energy.
Yeah, this is true. So when we're talking about staying in those high vibrational frequencies, it doesn't always look like forcing yourself to feel away or by just trying to spiritually bypass or think or ignore the negative feelings.
No,
By literally
sometimes you gotta
preparing the
sit in
energy.
those.
Yeah. Sit in it,
Sometimes
feel it.
sometimes you gotta sit in the grief, the sadness, the frustration, the disappointment. You have to sit in it because whatever that is, it's there to teach you something.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean sit in it for 10 years, right?
Right.
But sit in that moment of discomfort and just acknowledge that it's there and
Mm-hmm.
figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
What do I need to adjust? What do I
Yeah.
need to change? And while you're sitting in it, drink your water, get your green juice, go outside in nature and ground, journal, sit in
Mm-hmm.
the hot tub with the Epsom salt, etc. Do those things along with to
Mm-hmm.
help
Mm-hmm.
give you that clarity so you can receive the download and move forward.
Yeah. When we're looking at this concept of preparing yourself to receive, we've prepared with the purpose, we've aligned ourselves vibrationally and emotionally with the higher feelings that match the frequency of what it is that we're trying to call in. This is where we get to the point of asking ourselves that deeper question, that more tender question of, can I actually hold what I'm asking for? Can my system, can my vibration of worthiness or my beliefs around worthiness actually hold this? Not in the sense of, I want a new car. Can it fit in my garage? But literally, can my body and my nervous system hold the energetic frequency of what I'm trying to call in? Because when you're trying to receive your blessings, your body has to feel safe enough to hold it. Your energy has to feel like, oh, this fits here perfectly with me. There is room for it. So we can pray all day. We can try to manifest and co-create overflow and expansion and the best. But if our nervous systems experience this as a threat, we're going to sabotage, we're going to shrink, or we're going to shut it down altogether.
I've always been a powerful manifester, but I also suffered from self sabotage. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I met Susie that she called me out within 2 minutes. And if most people are aware, Susie's company, Poopery, you can listen to her story, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Because Susie had been on the journey before me, she could call it in me like this.
Yeah.
And she was like, boom, you're self-sabotaging. And she had me write, we were in a coffee shop in Dallas, Texas. On the napkin, I wrote down, I expand in my container to receive abundance, love, and joy.
You gave me that
Since
same
then,
affirmation a while
I
back.
did. I give a lot of people that
Yeah.
affirmation. Since
Mm-hmm.
then, Susie revised it. I was at her house a couple of years ago. She was like, oh, I had an insight. So it's
Mm-hmm.
now I expand, not in my container. You drop that part. I expand to receive abundance, love, and joy as I inspire others to do the same. Along with that affirmation, Susie told me to read the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And
That
Gay
book.
Hendricks mentors Susie. So that book introduced me to the upper limit syndrome. So it helped me to recognize where I was self-sabotaging
Mhm.
to in my co-creation process. So I would get these amazing things and then they would fizzle out. What was happening? It was my upper limit. So I started to recognize, I thought, oh, this is too good for me. I'm not ready for this yet. I haven't quote unquote paid my dues for this.
Anytime you approach that thing, that desire that you want, something's going to happen. He calls it the upper limit syndrome. I call it brushing up against my edges. But it's when we've hit the limits or the edge of what our body currently knows how to hold.
Yep.
We get beyond our comfort zone. Our nervous system sees these good things that we want as bad because they feel so foreign to us. We don't have the energetic capacity to hold it, so we start procrastinating. I know he gives the example of getting sick a few times or getting into an accident or just sabotaging your relationship, whatever the case may be. Did you know prior to Susie calling you out about it and prior to reading the book The Big Leap that you were self-sabotaging? Were you able to
No.
identify those behaviors within
Nope,
yourself?
nope. It wasn't even in my vocabulary.
Right.
I did not associate any part of my characteristic with the word self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
once she said it and she explained it to me and I read the book, then I was like, oh shit.
So what did your self-sabotage look like?
It looked very different because at that point I had a long established pattern of many things
Mm-hmm.
of self-sabotage. It could have been not following through
Mm-hmm.
or not sending a proposal with a high enough rate, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
talking myself out of sending the 5-figure proposal over to the client. That happened. That's probably a common one that I faced before
We're
Susie.
gonna have to talk about that offline because
Yeah. But then it went to, and then I started doing the work of why do I not send
mm-hmm.
the 5-figure, 6-figure invoices?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do a lot of investigation into that. Once I did that investigative work on myself, then I was able to say, oh, this is the root of that.
Yeah.
And then once that's addressed, now I can say I no longer experience that same type of self-sabotage. But it's all inner work, right? It all comes back to why am I doing this? It's not, how do I want to say this? It's not the exact behavior that you identify that's the problem
It's the why.
related to the self-sabotage. It's the why, and it's not the
Mm-hmm.
surface level why.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you do when you actually do the deep dive. I do this because of this, I do this because of this, and then you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that one time when I was on the playground as a kid and somebody said XYZ,
Yeah.
I'm still reacting to that.
Yes. Ooh, the work. That's really, truly inner work. I'm curious to know now too, because I don't think that this is ever a one and done process. Like once you do that investigative inner work, that you stop increasing your capacity. So in your present moment or in your present season, what are some signs or personal tells that let you know personally that you're brushing up against your edges or that you're reaching your upper limits? How do you, once you see them, how do you ground yourself and tell yourself that you're safe to expand?
Good question. I'm trying to think about getting to presently what that looks like. Right now, I feel like I'm in a really interesting place where I don't sit in the upper limit too long,
Of
only
course
because
not.
I've strengthened that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
But if I, what is it like? I'm trying to think of a tangible example of something that's super recent. I have one. It was a client that I had that I needed to release.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to stay on with that client to reach a milestone that I said that I would set. And so the upper limit was clinging to something, even though I knew it was no longer resonant. There was so much dissonance in that situation. And I was trying to push through because I wanted to have that accomplishment under my belt that
Mm-hmm.
I did XYZ that I said I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that got super dissonant. That was self sabotage because in a moment where you're in dissonance and you don't readjust and align to resonance, you block yourself from new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
For myself personally.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to push through in that situation was my upper limit.
Thank you
and
for
my
sharing that.
self-sabotage.
Yeah, because again, the whole point of the upper limit is to keep us within the realms of safety that our subconscious minds has already identified for us. So for you, what you could have possibly been going through is, if I release this client before I reach this milestone, that means I'm a failure. And failure is outside of everybody's comfort zone, right?
Well,
Or,
I wouldn't say that, because the failure piece I'm fine with. Like, that's probably one thing I've always been fine with,
yeah.
is the failure piece, which is a strength and a weakness. Because I will launch something before it's fully baked. That's just who I am. Reid Hoffman once said, "If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've waited too long to release it." And for those of you who don't know Reid Hoffman, he's a co-founder of LinkedIn. They sold LinkedIn for 32 billion cash to Microsoft,
Ugh.
right? LinkedIn didn't start getting sexy and cute until a few years ago. They sold it for over 32 billion cash. So I've always resonated with going before I launched, but it was just purely, I said I was going to do something and I wanted to do it. And although there was a lot of dissonance surrounding the circumstances of me achieving that, I overrode the dissonance because I wanted to say, oh, I've done this.
One of the things that I'm curious about regarding capacity building is whether or not you see it as a spiritual discipline, right? I know we talked about the nervous system piece of it all. We talked about the aligning the frequency and your emotions. Do you think that there's a thread that connects the two?
Yeah.
What would you say that is?
I would say, when I mentioned the map of consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins, that's one of the clear examples of that, of being able to pull up that map and say, oh, I'm feeling this emotion, this is my frequency.
Yeah.
Right. And then also, if you look at that, where you are on the frequency map, that's usually where your attention is. And you know that quote, where your attention goes, your energy flows. So that's that direct connect right there.
Yeah. Okay. Why do you think that capacity building is often like a missing piece in conversations around manifestation or abundance or like getting your prayers answered?
Because there are so many steps to the process. I think people try to give presently, people who are teaching this are trying to help folks at the entry point or the beginning stages. So I don't necessarily think it's a missing link. I think so many people are at the earlier stages of it that they haven't done the work to get to the part where they understand the capacity aspect. It's there, and almost everyone I speak to, once they get to the stage, you're like, all of a sudden, this book, this podcast, this
Yeah,
tool, this class came
yeah.
up. So I think it's not necessarily missing. It's just that most people are earlier in the process and looking to get to the end result before actually doing the work that's necessary.
I could agree with that because I think if you just look at us and where we are on our journeys, and not to say that being further ahead doesn't mean that you keep going back into the lesson, not even to use a language further ahead, but let's say being deeper initiated.
At a different stage.
Right,
Yeah.
just at a different stage. It's like this is something that you continuously have to learn and relearn to even, again, like you said, have that awareness and be like, wait a minute, I'm brushing up against my edges, I'm hitting my upper limit. This is why I can't push past into that next thing yet. This is why the thing that I'm calling in has yet to manifest or come into being. This is why God hasn't given me that blessing yet, because I can't hold it.
But also, sometimes what I see people do is, this is my own observation from my friend. People are living in their answered prayer, but it looks a little bit different.
All the time. All the time.
So the capacity is there, but the awareness to zoom out, to be like,
Oh, this is
I
it.
distinctly remember I was at a vision board party years ago when I lived in Atlanta. And this one person at the vision board party was like, I want to live on an island in a little house with my husband and have 2 kids and tropical setting. And we lost touch. We used to hang out a lot. We lost touch. And then at one point, I saw on social media that she was living this life. And I reached out. I was like, OMG, I remember the vision board party. Like, you manifested this. It's like, I don't like this. We have mosquitoes. It's hot. I
Right.
need luxury. And I remember that moment of the capacity was there.
Because she got it.
You got it all,
Mm-hmm.
but it looks a little bit different. You uncomfortable because you're not in the AC, but you want to be outside in the tropical islands, right? But a lot of times, I think we actually have more capacity than what we give ourselves credit for.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the ability to see that even with present uncertainty or discomfort, that we are actually living in that answered prayer.
Yeah. The answered prayer doesn't negate the discomfort. When you look at the teachings of Esther and Abraham Hicks, right, they often talk about feedback, and that's how you continue to refine your reality. Of course, when you desire to be in a certain state or stage, you could only see the greener grass. You don't
Mm-hmm.
see the parts of the lawn with the weeds and the patches that you got to fix and that ditch over there in the corner that you're going to have to tend to when you reach it. So when you now arrive in that desired state, you're like, wait a minute, there's work to be done here too. This needs to be fixed, or this is not all I thought it was going to be cracked up to be. So that's where you refine. And that's when you go back to the stage one of, okay, living in this reality.
Mm-hmm.
I need to tweak this part of this reality. And you go back to step one. It's really a never ending process of co creation.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. And I think, being in a place where I have to weed eat, I don't want to go outside and weed eat. I'd rather
Yeah.
sit inside, drink my tea, read a book, paint,
Hmm.
yada, yada, yada. There's responsibility that comes with the things that we want. And that
Yes.
doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go back and co-create.
Hmm.
It's just the responsibility that we're given for what we have.
Yeah.
And I guess part of the capacity is being realistic of saying there are things that you're going to have to do
To
that
steward
might
this, to keep it.
right, that might not necessarily be sexy, pretty, and Instagram worthy,
Hmm.
but if you want the yard, then you got to maintain the yard.
Yes, ma'am. So, perfect segue into this last question.
Mm-hmm.
Once you receive the blessing or once you get that desire fulfilled, from your perspective and your lived experience, how do you continue to hold it and care for it? How do you steward that thing? And then in your process of stewardship and caring for it, how do you multiply it? Because I think that's the next step of when I say that the process of co-creating is never done.
Mm-hmm.
You keep creating, you keep making more. The more might
Mm-hmm.
look different, but I think it's all about holding it, caring for it, serving as a steward, and then using that as a jumping point to make more. So back to the question. Once you receive your blessings, how do you continue to hold it and care for it?
Accountability and discipline. It is being accountable for whatever it is, fill in the blank. What I notice specifically when it comes to careers, because I spend a lot of my time working with people who want to manifest their dream career.
Mm-hmm.
They get the role and you're acting like somebody on a TV show. Unrealistic expectations. There's no accountability for your actions or increasing in your professional development or working on the skills necessary. I cannot tell you the amount of people that I've witnessed just think it's about hopping on flights and posting cute pictures and dress and fly
Mm-hmm.
and speaking to people crazy. That is the quickest way to not maintain what you manifested, is being reckless with it. So you have to have
Mm-hmm.
accountability and you have to have discipline as well. And the accountability and the discipline will naturally lead to multiplication, because when you talk about being a steward of it, like I said, I don't like weed eating, but I really wanted a yard. So guess
Mm-hmm.
what? The grass get cut, but the weed eating got to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of accountability and discipline of saying, I'm gonna get out here, I'm gonna cut these weeds. It can also be when it comes to your career, when a person steps into a new position. A lot of times I'm telling my clients, the saying, what got you here won't get you there, is true.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How are you deepening your skills and your knowledge? How are you cultivating the necessary culture around you to be able to have that discipline and growth? Are you hiring a team of yes people? Because if you are, then you're not going to have that necessary friction to challenge how you think, to innovate and create products and solutions that are necessary. So it all comes back to, for stewardship and multiplication for me, is accountability and discipline.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And as I'm hearing and receiving what you're saying, my mind's automatically computing those words into like, how do you continue to be that person that you want to be, right? So in your example of somebody who's trying to like get to the next level of being promoted or continuing to advance in their career, once you get to that next level, how do you keep being that person that keeps being promoted? How do you keep being that
Yeah.
person that like betters themselves and continues to grow and expand into more of this person? Before you can multiply the external, you have to keep growing and multiplying internally too.
So Solange has a song, Don't Wish Me Well,
Mm-hmm,
where there's a line in the song where she says, they say I changed. It'd be a pity if I stayed the same.
mm-hmm,
And on this journey, if you are staying the same, if people aren't saying, who does she think she is? She changed. Then that's an indicator that somewhere you got stuck.
mm-hmm,
With this awareness will put you on to what you need to do to cultivate the necessary environment, skills, resources around you to be able to grow. You should not, and you and I constantly, we're not the same women that we were. You're not the same woman, neither am I, from when we met,
mm-hmm,
not even from a year ago or
mm-hmm.
even 6 months ago.
True.
There is this evolution of you're doing things necessary, whatever that pace may be, to grow into that. And that's the awareness and the discipline of knowing, oh, now I got to get more tools, or I got to
Mm-hmm,
get sharper tools, or I need to invest in higher quality tools to maintain this garden.
mm-hmm,
Or now that I'm in this leadership role and I'm leading a team of 25 people, or I have 6 direct reports and underneath them is 80, now I need to work on advanced communication skills,
mm-hmm,
etc. It's those things where when you get there, you haven't quote unquote arrived.
mm-hmm.
Now what is the responsibility of the position that I now hold? Whether that's
Exactly.
manifesting love, car, house, career, etc.
Yeah, yeah. Nothing more to add on that part. Because I totally am in complete and full agreement. When you think you're at the point of arrival, that's when the work really just begins. For our practical tool, we're summarizing and synthesizing all this goodness into a 3-step process for preparing your life, your energy, and your body for the blessings God is so eager to pour out. Step 1, clear the space. This is where we spoke about preparing on purpose, making room in faith before the blessing actually manifests. This step is about demonstrating faith through action, positioning yourself as if the blessing is already on its way. When you make and take practical, intentional moves in support of your desire, you're telling God, I trust you enough to prepare for it before I see it. Identify one concrete action you can take that makes space and room for your desire to land. Think about, how would the version of me who already has this blessing prepare? My case, that looked like booking the trip. I've also scheduled the move, honey, before I had the place to move into. You can open the bank account. You can set up your business systems, like your payment platforms or your intake forms. You can clear physical space in your home, buy that desk, or clear the drawer for your partner that you're trying to call in. Block time on your calendar, like Jacqueline did, for the book that you want to write, or the clothing line that you want to create, whatever you're trying to call in. Start acting as the person that already has that or does that. Our biblical anchor for this step in the framework is our sacred text. 2 Kings 3, entire verse, we're going to expand it, 15 through 20, basically saying dig your ditches so that the water will come. Step 2, aligning your frequency, acting as if, and becoming a vibrational match for what you've asked for. This is the second embodiment of your prayer, of your ask, of your request, because faith lives in your feelings just as much as your words. If you're praying for peace, but living in anxiety, you're sending mixed signals. To co-create with God, your emotions and energy have to align with the blessing. So how are we going to do this step? First, identify the feeling tone of your desire and intentionally align with it mentally and emotionally. Jacqueline mentioned that frequency chart from Stephen Hawkins. Identify that emotion and see where it lives on the chart, and identify the emotion that you've been living in. Do what you need to do to elevate yourself to the frequency of your desire. You can start by asking, how does the version of me who has this feel? Here's some suggested actions. Name the dominant emotion of your desired reality. Me, boss lady, rich. I'm just being honest. Practice like emotional rehearsal. It takes 60 seconds to feel that emotion in your body. Jacqueline spoke about milking the feeling, milking that emotion. You're doing emotional rehearsal when you think about that time where you felt so good. Or for me, one of the things I do is anytime I have a feeling that I want to repeatedly milk or embody, I name it and picture where it is on like a ladder. There was a point in my life I repeatedly wanted to feel content. So I'd be like, okay, contentment, I file that away here. I'm going to reach contentment and I'm going to hold that feeling of contentment. It works. You can also visualize yourself inside that fulfilled moment of when you receive the blessing and it's already a part of your reality. How do you breathe? How do you move? How do you speak? What you got on? You putting that down? You putting that shit on? Okay. Use affirmations that match the state you're stepping into. We already know that's a standard practice. It's talked about so often because they do work. And last but not least, express gratitude as if the blessing already exists. So this is how you create from that place of abundance instead of from that place of lack or limitation. Praying from, I have it, thank you for it, instead of, God, I don't got it, I need it, it's not here right now, send it on down. Different vibrations. Our biblical anchor for this step dose, is Romans 4:17. God calls those things that are not as though they were. Talk about it, be about it, live it, act as it. Step 3, expand the container. This is where all that we spoke around expanding your nervous system capacity and stewarding your blessings comes into play. This is where we make it safe for us to receive and safe for us to actually hold the blessing. Like we said, sometimes the blessing hasn't landed yet because your system can't hold it. Even if your spirit is willing, you want that desire, your nervous system could be on high alert because of trauma, conditioning, past realities, just things in your history that make you doubt whether or not this thing is for you. This step is where we regulate our bodies to feel safe with the success, feel safe with the visibility, feel safe with the intimacy, feel safe with the abundance and whatever else you're calling in. When you expand your capacity, you shift from fear of more to faith in more. And don't forget, it's also about stewardship, preparing your heart and your habits to sustain the blessing once it comes. To whom much is given, much is required. So here's how we're going to do this one. Choose one nervous system regulation practice that you can use to signal safety and name how you're going to care for your blessing once you have it. So, for example, you can practice some breath work, a simple like 4-4-4 box breathing, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for another 4. That signals safety because your body shifts into your parasympathetic state, which is where you rest and digest. And once you're able to breathe deep, your body already feels safer. You can also create a ritual of rest, whether that be daily, weekly, monthly, whatever cadence that you can work into your schedule to signal, I'm safe. I don't have to keep pushing and keep grinding. It's okay. I am safe to take this moment to take a break. Of course, reflect on how you're going to steward that blessing. If it's a relationship, how are you going to nurture it? How are you going to show up as the person that belongs in that relationship? If it's a platform, how are you going to stay grounded? If it's financial overflow, how will you manage and bless others through it? All good questions to ask. And practicing this, doing and taking these steps also helps you better identify how you're going to act as it all tricks. Okay. Biblical anchor for this step. Isaiah 54, verse 2, enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your tent curtains back wide, do not hold back, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes. Prepare for the increase, baby, because it's coming. We have to make the room to receive.
For
Friend,
sure.
sister, thank you so much for
Of course.
such an expansive conversation. I appreciate you deeply.
Likewise, thank you for having me on as a guest. I remember you telling me at some point, you're like, when I do the podcast, you're coming on, we're going to talk about this.
Yep.
It's a manifested conversation.
Yes, it is.
And I hope it's valuable to people. It's so much to unpack when you do years of work to like
Mhm.
distill it down to something actionable. So I hope for the listeners that you all found some threads that you can resonate with.
Yes, I'm sure they did. Thank you all for listening, for watching, for rocking with us. And I really hope, as Jacqueline mentioned, that you got something, even if one gem, that you can apply in your life. As we close, I want you to remember that receiving isn't passive. It is the final and critical step in co-creating. To fully receive God's abundance, we must intentionally prepare ourselves spiritually, emotionally, vibrationally, and physically. This is part of the work. True preparation not only means believing in the promise, but actively creating space within and around us for it to manifest. And also remember, it is in giving that we receive. So as I give to y'all, I do hope that you can help me receive some ratings and reviews. I'd love to see some reviews roll in. I've seen the ratings come in, but let me know how you're enjoying these conversations and talk about it to help others find the show. Subscribe to the Substack to go deeper into the content for each episode. I don't want this to just be a podcast. I really want this to be a community that edifies and expands people. My purpose is to help us reconnect to God, reconnect to the divine by reconnecting with our own inherent and eternal divinity. So I just want us to all come together and, like I said, make a community, be friends, hang out. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed the episode. See you next week for our mini-sode. All right. That's a wrap for this episode of Even in the Small Things. Thanks for kicking it with me. I hope you're feeling a little more connected and a lot more encouraged. Life's messy, but God's right there in the middle of it, helping us figure it all out. If you liked today's episode, go ahead and subscribe, comment, rate, and of course, share the episode. Until next time, keep it real, keep it light, and remember, God's in the details.